Now, of course, Tillerson currently meeting with Sergei Lavrov in Moscow. How realistic is it, do you think, that Tillerson can make Russia give up support for Assad? Because that seems to be what is wanted. But Assad, of course, given billions, spent billions on the Russians spend billions on Assad, as well as the historically supported Syria. So what is the chance that this is likely to happen?
I think the chance is zero that it will happen, for the simple reason that Putin's prestige is so intimately connected with his Syrian campaign. So there's really very little way in which he can abandon Assad. The difficult question, the different and more important question is to what extent they can patch up relations with the United States. Because I think the crucial point about the whole involvement of Russia in Syria is that they're doing it not because they really care about Syria. There's not any desperate Russian vital interest in Syria. The vital Russian interest is, one, being at the top diplomatic tables of the world and being taken seriously, prestige, and two, as the Russians see it, to prevent the spread of regime change as encouraged by America. And that's something that Russia has been fighting against ever since 1999, the bombing of Yugoslavia. Russians have been pushing back against all of the American interventions around the world, and they see Syria as a red line against American intervention. So for Tillerson, basically what they're trying to get to is a point where they can both get back on the same page, which is where they were, surprisingly enough, even under the late Obama period. Basically, Russia and America, despite the atmospherics and the tension, were actually basically both united on one thing, which is bombing ISIS. Now, the problem is that with the bombing of Assad regime positions by Trump, the whole dynamic of the Syria war has changed, and Assad is now not likely to win it on his own terms anymore, and that changes the Russia's involvement completely.
And do you think Mr. Tillerson can achieve this improving relationship between the two countries? I mean, we heard his comments to the G7 saying that Russia risks becoming irrelevant in the Middle East because of its support for Assad. Are those the sort of comments that would work, do you think?
Well, I think Tillerson is precisely wrong. Russia's involvement in the Assad regime makes it extremely relevant in the Syria conflict, far more, in many ways, more relevant than the United States has been, because the United States engagement, or rather the policy, has really been pretty disengaged. And it's been already 2 years since the United States pretty much gave up on the idea of sponsoring a moderate opposition to Assad. That didn't work. So already Russia really is the international showrunner in the dynamic of the war, because they're the ones that have been most intimately involved in supporting Assad on the ground. The question is really what is the end game and on what terms the Syria war is going to be concluded. Up until this intervention by Trump and the bombing of the regime airbase in retaliation for the chemical weapon strikes, it was looking, after the fall of Aleppo to Assad's forces, that Assad would be able to conclude this conflict more or less on his own terms. Now that's changed, and Russia is actually playing an important role as an honest broker, in fact. I think even Russia recognizes that Assad cannot really win outright. So, and Moscow has been sponsoring actually probably the most productive round of peace talks in Almaty the month before last. And so Russia actually appears to be on a diametrically opposite side to the United States on this. As long as the United States sticks to their line that Assad must go, because that is the one thing that the Russians are adamant is that Assad must stay. But I think it's highly likely that the Americans will actually dial back on that and actually finally reach the same kind of compromise that Obama offered, which was actually some kind of deal which allows Assad to remain in power in a de facto divided Syria.
Okay, Owen, appreciate your thoughts today. Owen Matthews, contributing editor for Newsweek magazine.